Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. So in today's tutorial, we're going to be looking at 5 Python tricks and mistakes that you're probably making as a Python programmer. So in Python can be a very dynamic language and a very modern language, but some of us come from older languages like C++, Java, JavaScript, and mainly C++, Java, and the other C languages. So we move along with some methods that we used to use in those languages, or simply some of us are just Python developers from scratch. Python is our first programming language and the only programming language that we use, but we still do some things in a more primitive way and not in a more modern way, because Python, every time a new version of Python comes up, there's a new tricks and other things that you can do in Python to make your code more efficient. So how can you make sure that you're taking advantage of these tricks and avoid making such mistakes in your Python code and be a better Python programmer? So this we're going to be covering in this tutorial. So if you're new to the channel, please kindly consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, liking this video, and sharing this content with anyone who you think might find it helpful. So the first thing I want us to look at is swapping variables in Python. So if you're coming from a more traditional language like C++ or Java or C, swapping variables can be a bit tricky because you have to create another additional variable and then start swapping things around, right? That can be tricky and a bit difficult to understand. But in Python, it's very simple to implement and do. And let me just go ahead and show you how you can do that in Python. Okay, so let's do a quick demo of how variables can be swapped in Python. Variable swapping in Python. So let's say I have two variables. Let's say I have a, and a is just gonna be simply, let's say, let me just give it a name. So sorry for that, let me just cancel this. So I have three variables. Let me just say a is gonna be Tommy, right? And then we have a b, and b is going to be let me just say, okay, I'm hitting the wrong key. So let me just say b is going to be Janet, right? So we have Tommy and Janet right there. So how do we go ahead and swap this variable? So we want a to become Janet and b to become Tony, right? So how do you go and do that? So in other programming languages like Java or C++, this is one way to do it. You create an additional variable which is going to be c, and c is going to hold the first variable, and now we can go ahead and swap the value of the first variable, since now we have it stored somewhere else. So we're going to say a is going to be b, and b, right, is going to be c, which is the original value of a, right? Because we have stored a originally in c, right? That's one way you can do it in Python. So if I go ahead and say print a, print b, let's see what we get. So now I have done that. You can simply go ahead and run the code, and let's see what we get. So if I print a and b, you can see now we have Janet and Tommy, right? A is now Janet and B is Tommy. Now this is one way to do it in the that's a bad mistake that you can do in Python. Another way you can do it, you can say a comma b is equals to b comma a. So means that a is going to be assigned to b and b is going to be assigned to a, and that's the way it's going to go. So the way in which you have done this is that's a primitive way of doing this in Python, and not really a good practice in Python. So let me just go ahead and show you the best way you can do this in Python. Another way you can do this, which is actually a good Python trick, which is going to be, we're just going to say a comma b is going to be b comma a, meaning that b is going to be assigned to a and a is going to be assigned to b. So b is going to be assigned to a, and a is going to be assigned to b. So now if you print a and b, now we should get the same values as Timmy and Johnny. So if I go ahead and run the code again, now you can see we got Tommy and I think I need, because here the reason why we're getting that is because we swapped the values first. So we just swapping it 2 times, that's why we're getting that value. So let me just go ahead and delete this part, and then I can go ahead and simply run the code again. Now we should go ahead and get back Janet and Tommy, because we have swapped those values, right? So yeah, that's basically it, how we can do it, variable swapping in Python. So now that we have looked at how you can swap variables in Python and do all that fun swapping of variables in Python, now let's move on to looking at how to sort a list of lists. So let's imagine that you have a list, and that list contains a list, right? Which a list in which whose elements are basically another list. So a list of lists, right? So, and you want to sort the list based on the first index of the nested list within it. So how can you do that in Python? So if you're coming from other programming languages, you're thinking of using a for loop and then creating a very complicated algorithm and logic. In Python, it's actually very simple. We can just use this by using the sort method and the lambda argument along with it, and you can specify on which index you want to sort it on. So it's very simple to do, and let's jump right into it. Okay, so now we also talk about how to swap list of lists, right? So let's say I have my main list. So let me just say L1. So let me just say list, and list is going to be equals to a Python list, and this list consists of other lists. So let's say 2 comma 4, and then we have we have another list. Inside of the list, right, we have 4 comma 7, and then we have another list which is going to be let's say 1 comma 1, sorry, this is going to be 1 comma 1 comma 4, right? So sorry for that, 1 comma 4, 1 comma 5 basically. So that's fine, right? So how do you go ahead and swap this sort this list of lists? So one way we can do this in Python. It's very very simple. We can say list dot sort, and then say loss list dot sort, and then we just pass in the key which we want to sort it by, and the key is going to be simply a lambda function. It's going to be a lambda function that's going to take in the inner list. So we're going to take in the inner list, so we can say inner, and the inner list, what you're going to simply go ahead and do, you can say inner, we're going to sort it based on the first index. So we're going to sort it based on the first index. So now what we should expect is this list should come first, and then this one, and then this one, because you are sorting it based on index 0. So you can also sort it based on index 2, and that should also work for you. So let's go ahead and simply go ahead. Let me just go ahead and print this, and let's just say print, and I'm going to print my list object. So once I have that, I'm going to hit the run button and then simply run it. So you can see we have a 1 right here. So you can see we have 1, and then we have 5, and then we have sorry, the list with 1, right? This one, and then this one, and then finally this one, and that's the same order we're getting here. So let's say we want to sort by index 2. So we want to sort by index 1 rather. So it's going to sort it based on these values right here, 6, 7, and 5. So to start 5, and then 6, and then finally 7. So now let's go ahead and simply run the code again. So now we should get back that output, right? We get back 5, and then 6, and then 7, based on the first index of the array, right? Not index 1, right? So that's how you can sort a list of lists in Python, and this is a cool Python trick in case you need to use it. You don't have to write a complicated for loops to do all that logic and any complicated algorithm. You can just use this to sort your list of lists in Python. Okay. So now that you've taken a look at how to sort a list of lists in Python, let's move on to trick number 3. And in trick number 3, we're going to look at how to decomposing a collection. So let's say we have a tuple, or we have a list containing 5 elements, right? How do you decompose it? And meaning basically what I mean by decompose is assigning each of those elements instead of the iterable, or like a list or a tuple, to individual elements. Now that can be difficult to do in other programming languages, but in Python it's really very simple. You can just create variables and then say equals to, and then you can assign it to that iterable. So it will do unpacking and unpack all the elements and assign it to those individual variables. So it may be a bit confusing to understand just by me saying it. So let's actually jump into Python, the Python code, and look at how this can be done in Python in just one line of Python code. So, talking about decomposing a collection. So, what's are collections in Python? So, collections are basically just iterables in Python, right? A list, a tuple, a set, a dictionary. All those are just collections in Python. So, are you able to How can you able to? Will you be able to decompose the collections in Python? So, let's say I have a list right here. So, it's going to be having 3, 5, and 1. So, that's my list right there. So, I want to go ahead and get the values of this list out. So, I want to create 3 variables. So, you can say A, B, and C, right? So how to go ahead and sort those values? So I can simply go ahead and say A, B, and C. What I want to do in here is basically assign A. Sorry, this is gonna be C right here. So I want to assign 3 to the value A. 3 to I want to assign 3 to A variable. I want to assign the value 5 to B variable, and I want to assign 1 to C variable. So I can just go ahead and simply say a list right here, and I can go ahead and say print, and I can print A, B, comma, C. So if I go ahead and run the code, let's see what we get. So now you can see I have 3, 5, and 6. So it does basically decompose that collection. So we have this major collection consisting of all these elements. It has decomposed. So one way you can see people doing this is just like using things like for loops or other things like that. Or people, you can see also people doing this. You can say list, and then simply say index 0, and then you can go here and say B, and then B is going to be index 1, and then you can also say C, and C is going to be in index 2, right? So just say index 2. That's another way to unpack it, but this is really primitive. If you come from languages like Java or C++, or C, if you do something like this, I wouldn't be surprised. But in Python, this is a better way to do it in Python, which is just a collection decomposing in Python, and that's I think it's a better approach than using this method. So we done the same thing which you did in 3 lines in just 1 line of Python code. So that's how you get the power of the power of decomposing a collection in Python can be. And this is a cool Python tricks you can use in your writing your programs for when we're for whatever you're trying to develop, right? So now that you have looked at how you can decompose a collection in Python, let's move on to trick number 4. And in trick number 4, we're going to be looking at how you can why you should stop using method overloading in Python. So you might be, if you're a person who has ever done object-oriented programming or OOP, right? Then you probably know this concept of method overloading, right? So one method having different signatures, right? Meaning that it can take more than the function basically, or method instead of a class takes different arguments basically. So one of the functions, maybe additional function, might take a and b and return the sum of a and b. Another add function might take a, b, and c and then return the sum of a, b, and c. Now this can be a bit tricky to do. Like if you want 10,000 variables, then you have to create a method that accepts 10,000 variables. Now this can be tricky. So in Python, I just think that it's best if you just avoid method overloading. If the only difference is going to be the signature, then you can use argument unpacking in Python and then do it in a very simple way. So what do I mean by argument unpacking? Now this can be a bit tricky to understand, so let's jump into it and look at what argument unpacking is in Python and how you can use it to avoid method overloading in case that the method the only difference between the methods is the signature of the method. Okay, so when we are talking about argument unpacking, or why you should not use method overloading in Python, or in case the signature is the only difference, right? Like the arguments are the only difference. This is one of the reasons why. So let's say that I have a value, right? So I have a function. This function is just going to be called add. So I have a def and it's going to be add, and this is going to take in a comma b, right? And then we're simply going to return a plus b, just like that, right? So if I go down here, I can just simply call this function. So I'm going to print this output. So I'm going to say add and then simply pass in let's say 20 and 40, which is going to be 60, right? So let me just go ahead and write the code. We should get 60. We can see 60 right here. Good. Now how do we go ahead and actually not use this? Let's say I want to have another add method. Let me just do this. You pretend that we're doing method overloading instead of a function. So let's say I have another add. Let's say I have a add 2, right? And how it takes in a, b, and c, right? So it's basically the same function, but that they're basically the same function, right? But if this was in a class object, then it would make more sense because we could have the same name for method overloading, right? So we're just going to return a plus b plus c. So if you call this function now, if you say add 2 and then you have to pass in three arguments, right? So you have to also say, let's say 30, and that should return to us 90 if I'm not wrong. So if I go, you can still get back 90. What if now I want to make another function to accept four parameters, four arguments, and then return to me this the sum of those arguments that you have passed in, right? So this can be really complicated to do and the big time wasting in Python. So let me just show you a better way of doing it. So we're going to use arguments unpacking in Python. So just delete all of this, and you might just going to say going to simply say the asterisk and you say args, just like this. So we're going to simply go ahead and create simply say result, and result is by default is going to be 0 because we didn't add anything up, right? So and then you're going to simply say, let me just delete this for now. You're going to say going to go ahead and iterate through this arg. So we're going to say for we're going to so now that we have the return set, the results variable set, I want to just go ahead and delete this return statement for now. So instead of actually returning something, what I want to do instead, I'm going to create a for loop for, I'm going to say for, I'm going to say for, let me just say a, right? For a in we're going to say for a in args, right? For a in args, what you want to simply go ahead and do is say result plus equals to a. That's basically, so in if you go ahead and actually print args, what do you get back? So if you can say print and then print args, just like that, args, just like that, and simply let's go ahead and let me just comment this rest of the code for now. Just comment this out. So once we call this function, we're going to say, so once I have the rest of the code commented out, let me just go ahead and run the code and let's see what we get. But before we run it, let's go ahead and we're not returning anything, so this wouldn't work. So I'm going to say add and then simply pass in just gonna pass in let's say 4,6. Okay, so 4,6, and then if I go ahead and run the code right now and let's see what we get back. So you can see I got back 4 and then 6, right? So I got 4 and 6 back as we expected to. So good. So these args are going to be passed as an iterable in Python that you can get access to, right? So once we have this, let me just go ahead and uncomment this part of the code and let's see what we get. So let's go ahead now. I'm going to go ahead and simply return result after the calculation. So I want to go ahead and return result, and now I can go ahead and say print the result if we get back from this function, whatever this function returns. So let's go ahead and actually run the code again. So now 5 and 10 we should get 5 and 7 we should 5, oh sorry, 4 and the 6 we get back 10, right? So we got back 10. So let's not print actually, let's not, we can just delete this for now because we want to print it out. So let's say now I want to go ahead and pass in, let's say another set of arguments, right? So let's go ahead and actually run this code again, and let's see what we get. So you can see it's going to return to us the sum of all these arguments. We don't have to create an additional function to handle all of that. So that's why we can use a method argument unpacking to avoid overloading methods in Python or something like that. So yeah, whenever creating with classes, okay, so that's basically how you can use method overloading to how you can avoid method overloading using argument unpacking in Python. Yeah, so that's basically how I can use argument unpacking in Python. Okay guys, so now that you have looked at how you can use method arguments unpacking in Python to avoid things like method overloading whenever necessary, then let's move on to trick number 5. And in trick number 5, you're going to look at how to merge dictionaries. So you might be thinking, okay, how do you merge dictionaries in Python, right? Maybe you have dictionary A and dictionary B, and you want to combine all of them into one specific dictionary. This is another Python trick you can use around to solving this problem. So let's jump and look at how you can use this to solve to merge many dictionaries into one, just a single file. Okay, so let's take a look at it and let's see how it can be done in Python. Okay, so now let's look at how we can merge two dictionaries together. So let's say we have dictionary 1. So I have dictionary, let me just say dict1, my first dictionary, and dictionary 1 is just going to have a couple of values. So we're going to say let's say val1, and val1 is just going to go and just say val underscore 1, then be the value, and the key is just going to say key underscore 1. And you're going to have another value right here. We're going to say value underscore 2, and val2 is going to have a key of key underscore 2, just like that. So we have this right here, and then we can just say a dictionary 2, which is just going to be the following. So dictionary 2 is just going to be the following. So we're going to have val underscore 1, so val underscore, in this case 3, and then you're going to have its key, which will be key underscore 3, and then you're going to have another one, let's say val, and it's going to be val 4, and then its key is going to be key 4. So let me just bring this back here and then say key underscore 4. So we have those values right there. So we have dictionary 1, dictionary 2, and dictionary 3, right? So I'm going to go ahead and simply try to merge all these dictionaries together. So to merge, I'm going to say result underscore dictionary, and this is going to be equals the following. So we're going to create a dictionary and then simply unpack the value of dict1. So dict1, and then you're going to go ahead and unpack the value of dict2. So that's why we have dictionary 1 and dict2. So now we can once we have that, I can go ahead and simply say print result dictionary right there. So once we print the result dictionary, let's see what we get. So I'm going to go ahead and simply run the code, and you can see now we have merged all those all these two dictionaries into a single dictionary, and we got the output right there. So that's basically how you can merge two dictionaries in Python using a simple in just one line of Python code. And this is a cool trick into using Python instead of using anything like for loops or be complicated to do. So just do this in just a single line of Python code, and that's the power of this Python trick of merging two dictionaries together. So that's how you can merge dictionaries together in Python. So now that I look at all those tricks in Python, now this is the end of the tutorial. So the slide that I use for this is I use a slide called Slide Go. And if you're new to the channel, please kindly consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, liking this video, and sharing this content with anyone who you think might find it helpful. If you have any suggestions or recommendations, let me know in the comment section below. I'll do my best to get back to you. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Keep safe.